Hello everyone, I'm Sredna and welcome to today's video. So I'm going to be talking about the idea of being artist, some thoughts I've had about am I still an artist, like do I even feel like this, and yeah, just kind of moving on with that. So I was thinking about this and I was like talking to Aaron a little bit and I was like, you know what? I used to be like, or at least like when people are like, oh, like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm an artist. And usually they ask like, maybe what kind of art. And then I tell them like, oh, like I'm like a painter, like I paint because there's so many, fields of art and I try to like whittle it down like, oh, well, I paint and then I do, I use like watercolors and I use acrylics and then I even go into like the themes, like, well, I tend to paint, scenes of nature and also like fantasy elements, things like that. And then they're kind of like, oh, okay, like I get it. But then I feel like they also still are like, wait, but how is that possible? Because I just don't think it's that usual to hear from someone that you meet that that's what they do. And I think too for depending on the area you live in, like for me, like living in North Dakota, there's not as many probably like opportunities as there would be to be an artist as there are in like bigger cities where you have more art jobs and things like that. And so I was thinking about, okay, and it can be an uncommon answer, but then also when I like say that, like, oh yeah, that's what I do, but it's actually a small part of what I do, and it's just one of the parts. So when I was starting out, I was like, okay, I don't know, maybe if you've listened to previous stuff, you might have heard me say this, but I came from the computer industry, and I was like, okay, what do I want to do? Because I'm not feeling quite fulfilled in the programming I was doing at the time. And I was like, well, since I have some options, like what like am I drawn to? Like what do I always like want to do and have wanted and things like that. And so I kind of like toyed around with things that I used to do in high school that I did just for fun, like theater and writing and art. And then I did sign up for like a writing class when I was in school, and that was really fun to make some in a college to make some plays. And I still like write in my free time and stuff. And who knows, maybe I'll something more will come of that one day, but right now it's something that I do for fun. And then for the art, I was like, okay, well, let me try making like art and doing that like consistently and see how I feel about that. Because you never know how something will be unless you, let me see, if you really enjoy it for a job, unless you apply it as you would like a job, like you're, at least, yeah, I don't know how often I would say probably at least like 20 hours a week or something, like, and then if you want to do, I kind of would rather do 30-hour work weeks instead of the 40-hour. So I don't know, it's up to the person. I probably do more maybe than 40 right now, but that's just because I think I'm just really excited about it, and I just always want to like work on art, but I do also take a break as well because I'm like, wait a second, what about my goals of doing 30-hour weeks? So, but anyway, that's just one of the things that kind of gets wrapped up when you start your own business, which leads me into that. So painting is one thing, like sitting down, making a picture. Okay, there's that. But then it's like, well, what do you do with that picture? And so then comes the business side. So then there's, okay, how do I package this in a way to give to people? Like, am I making this art as prints for people? Am I selling like originals? Am I reaching out to clients? Am I doing freelancing for them? Am I doing custom artwork? Am I looking for art jobs on my own, or do I have an agent who will do that job for me? So then it opens this up into, okay, this is more than making a painting, because then there's the follow-up and all the other stuff that has to get done in order to turn that into an income. And so when I'm thinking about, am I an artist? And I think that's one of the things I am. I'm also a small business owner. I'm like, in charge of, okay, what are the supplies I need? What did it take to make this artwork, and tallying that up? And then, okay, like, what is my profit looking like on that? What is packaging and shipping, and how, timely can I get all this stuff in? Because I get things from like supplies from various like stores, either like locally or online or overseas, and then having to work all of that out. Excuse me. And then there's the accounting part. So I keep a track of all of my expenses, and then like around like monthly, I'll like type in like what's been my revenue, what's been my expenses, and then I'll put those in folders and then save all my receipts and stuff. And then at the end of the year, I submit all of that to my like tax advisor or accountant, I guess. So there's also like some well, not just some, I feel like a lot of financial work, because whenever I'm even making a piece, I'm thinking about, okay, so if I'm making this, for example, in like an 8x10 size, even the fact that I think about these sizes, I'm thinking about them in terms of ratios. Like if I make a print in if I make a work of art in an 8x10, what other sizes can I do? And so for me, since I have my very nice scanner, I tend to scale up. I don't go past, I feel like probably not 3, most of the time, not even past 2 times the size, just because I'm so paranoid about the images not being so crisp. I could probably go up to 3 usually. But anyway, so if I have like that size, okay, I size up one, let's say I do like 11x14, and then I can also size down, let's say a 5x7. But those ratios aren't always exact. So then I find myself maybe painting more of a 7x9, and then adding a little bit of border for the higher up images, and maybe removing a border for another image. And anyway, so then there's like a whole almost like graphic design component to it, because I don't even know what you call it, or framing component, but I do like work with software like Photoshop to then kind of like add borders and kind of see what sizes I'm working with and what ratios. And then I also use Photoshop to create like mock-ups of what my art can look like in various frames, so people have an easier time of picturing it in their space. And so even that, I would say also that's a lot of like graphic design stuff. I do spend a lot of time using Photoshop to sort of like display my artwork, or also like make banners and labels and things like that. And I might do like test prints off of my computer, but I don't usually print my own artwork, just because I like the way that I get it printed through Fineworks right now, which is they're known as an art and photo printing company. Like that's their specialty, and they do like really high quality work, and I can pick the papers, and I know they do like giclée printing and just like archival, and the colors are always so bright, and it looks so close to the original, like I would not even be able to tell, basically. So I'm very happy with that, and I like that I can have it shipped directly to the customer through them, so that way I don't have to like order a bunch of prints myself and keep them on hand and then mail them out to people. So for how I like to do business, like that works for me. Because another thing I was thinking when I got into art, so I was like doing like more painting and stuff, and I was like, okay, I like this. I can see myself doing this like every day and not being like annoyed from it, because there's like other things that I've done that like I got like tired of. Like I was making like jewelry for a bit, and I was selling that online at some point, and I just got to a point where I just didn't enjoy making it. Like it just became, yeah, I will just say that. Yeah, I just didn't enjoy making it. It's something that like I enjoyed when it was done occasionally, but like every day, like multiple times a day, doing the same thing, I just was like, I don't really like this. And it was that I think the business was doing pretty well. So like if you like, or if you want to make jewelry, if you go to the hypoallergenic market and make stuff for them, like with stainless steel and stuff, for people like me with allergies in our ears and stuff, I think that's a really good niche market to get into for jewelry, because there's definitely a demand. People were really like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I can wear this stuff. And I was glad I could do that for at least a little bit. Now I'll probably just do like custom stuff. Like usually it's my friends or family who are like, hey, can you make me that piece? And I'm like, yeah, sure. But as far as like on a mass level, I just saw that, yeah, in order to kind of take this business to the next level, I'd have to like hire on people and yeah, just do all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I would just say that I'm glad I tried it though. And so then when like the art was like something that I didn't get tired of, and actually just the more I did it, the more kind of obsessed I became with it. Like the more I wanted to make and the more I wanted to bring like all kinds of things to life, and I have like so many ideas. I mean, I am definitely on the side of an idea generator, and I do just like have so many ideas about things. It's not, I'm not sure I've ever run out of ideas like that. I know that happens to people, but for me, that's just like, I just don't know how that happens, because I'm always like thinking about the next thing, which has sometimes got me, well, I don't know if that's it might be a good thing for business, but it has slowed me down at times, because I think there are times where I did need to kind of like sit still and like observe what was going on around me and just kind of wait for things to settle and see how it goes. But like I've already moved on. Like instead I'm like, whoop, going on to the next thing and the next thing. So I've tried all kinds of like art styles and painting themes and things like that. And so at some point I did decide that, then I just went by like, hey, I make nature and fantasy. And even like when I was like working with a mentor for a little bit to talk about where my business was headed, she was even wanting me to pick one thing. And I was like, I have so many things I'm interested in. But for me, it does usually come down to that. And it's basically like nature is my happy place. That's my safe space, my place where I relax, where I find great comfort in. And then the fantasy realm to me is just the imaginative. Like it doesn't have to look like you've always seen. Let's use, our ideas to bring things to life that we may, not see in the everyday. And even the way I'm describing it, I'm like, well, it could even kind of get into the surreal kind of world of like, you might not exactly see it, but like if there's like, I don't know, a mountain in the shape of a person, and then there's a snail crawling on their head, like, and there's clouds with wings and stuff, like even that, so just that sort of like imaginary realm and stuff. So really this place of being able to come up with all these ideas and put them or make something like from them, like whether it's like through my writing or it's through making like art and painting, and whether it's through even like talking to my kids creatively about like ways that we can like problem solve or work things out with each other and friends, and the way we communicate and express ourselves, the way we move through the world as people, and what that means, the ways that we run businesses, the ways that we live and eat. All of these things to me can be approached in a creative or even like artistic manner. So for me, even though I wear like these many hats, like I feel like it's more like I happen to be. Like I don't know if that kind of, maybe that's what I'm trying to get at, because I think that, as we like move through the world and we call ourselves like these different labels at, various points in our life, and like those labels like change somewhat or whatever it is, I feel like at the heart of it are things that are always there. Like, I'm still interested in technology, and I, love games, and I think that's really great. So like my love for computers hasn't gone anywhere. I also love, like art and making it and colors, and I love books and imaginary realms and all that stuff. So no matter what, hat or role I happen to be wearing at the time, like small business owner, packager, graphic designer, and well, and then when it's art show season, then it's what is it, like laborer, and having to take the art like back into from my car and setting the tent up and being out there all day and being like, well, I don't want to say like salesy, because I'm not, I don't know. It is like a little salesy though, but also I like to think of it, I guess, like when I'm in those areas like where I am talking to somebody about my art, and I am at these art festivals or art fairs to sell my art. Like this is part of how where my income comes from, just like everyone else makes their income and stuff. But I like to think about it, instead of being like, hey, you need this thing, blah blah blah. I like other, I don't know, people might, maybe that's what I think of when I think of like salesy people, even though like we have the same intention, which is that like we would like to get some sort of like product into the hands of someone else, and we would like to make money from that. But I like to bring like a story into it, I guess, like how this painting kind of like came to be. I like to include people on the journey, like, hey, you can like watch me paint it, or on like my YouTube channel, or hey, here's the like materials I used, or here's where I was, where I painted it, or I got the photo from, and what sort of like inspires me about it, and things like that. And like there was this lovely lady who was, I remember her last year asking me about, there was like the forest dragon, and then there was also like the Dr. Dolittle. Oh, I had so much fun talking about the Dr. Dolittle print, or art, because I was saying how like there's like the 1960s version with Rex something, but he has such a cool name. And that was like the one that I watched as a kid, like with the fam. And the image of him and everyone on this giant turtle, or not giant turtle, sorry, giant snail, going like through the ocean, like using it to like travel, and like the way that they used the shell, the spiraling shell, they like put their luggage inside of it. They crawled inside, put their luggage in, and then the snail like went down in the ocean, kind of like it was a submarine, and continued on. And that has like never left my mind, and I just thought that was so just magical, and I wanted to do like an ode to that sort of thing. So my Dr. Dolittle print, I did the various like animals, because he like talked to them and stuff, and then I had like the giant snail, and things like that. And then I also wanted to do, instead of like the doctor in the photo like being like a male, I don't know, outwardly facing or whatever, I want it to be like more feminine. And so I feel like this all kind of like, it was like everything like brought it together. Like I had to like have watched, I don't know, that movie and had that like childhood experience, and also had like, family members who love, those kind of shows, to even share that with me. And then to like where I am now with this like wanting to represent, like I have a way that I can make the world a bit better, excuse me, by showing it as more of an inclusive space, by including lots of people that we are, friends and family with, or that like we see every day, or maybe we don't see as often because we live in the middle of nowhere, but then incorporate that into my own art and just affect the art world in that way, in a more inclusive way. And so it's like important to me to have like more like female characters, and like showing like their strengths and in like positions of like higher authority, and then also showing like kids who are like confident in themselves and brave, and then also what else do I like to show? People of like with like brown skin tones. Love to show that. I love to show guys in like sensitive emotional spaces, and show queer characters and queer love and things like that. And so, and then also like mixed families. So just people from, all over coming together to be a family. And people have varying just family roles. Like they could have been raised by like their grandparents, or they could have been adopted, or have parents from different, countries, like maybe one's from South Korea and then one's from, North Africa. There could just like all kinds of, like, I want to show as much of the world in my paintings as I can. So that's also something. So just by getting to these art shows and like talking to people like one-on-one, like I just think it's so fun that people ask me about the inspirations or where these scenes come from, because there is so much. There is so much. And maybe that's something I'm trying to think how I can sort of incorporate that experience more online, because in person it's such like a different experience. Like you get like the feedback like right there, the person is talking. You might even get some I love like the sassy ones who are like, I don't know about this piece, or like this seems kind of pricey stuff too, because it's really all, I love that sort of like unfiltered feedback and things like that. And so yeah, like usually online there's a lot of like, oh yeah, like that's great, like that's great, that's great, and those are like nice to receive. But as far as like helping to like shape the business and stuff, or help like guide like what kind of things to paint and things to make, and like feedback to get based on my audience and things like that, I don't get as much of that conversation like online. So like in person, like I hear, oh, like, are you gonna do like some mermaids sometime? And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Or someone had talked about like, oh, what if you like had a bit more dragons? I'm like, oh my gosh, dragon series. And then I ended up doing a few more pieces on there. So I like to hear people's feedback. And so, there was, I mean, I don't always include all the feedback. This is like the best feedback over here. There was also sometimes I get something about like, oh, like, will you do like stuff with crosses or like religious things? I'm like, nope, no way. I am not religious. That is not happening. Used to be at some point in time, but then again, I've probably been like all kinds of things, like, I don't know, Christian, a bit Buddhist. What else is there? Well, I haven't got into Islam, but I did like read a little bit about it. And then there's also like atheist, which is probably mostly the side I lean on. But then there's also spiritualist orality. There's a little bit, well, there's probably a bit of that in there as well. And so there's just all kinds of like aspects. Oh, also there's like Wicca, pagan things that I've looked into and stuff, and I found interesting bits. So really, like, as far as the like religious side of things go, like I do like, there's some kind of things that I do like to depict and like some kind of beliefs, but those, if I do depict them, they're ones that I do believe to have shown themselves to be like peaceful and like wanting to live just like in a kind way with others and with nature and like those kind of like values. So I would never do something with crosses, like any bouts of just anything that has sort of, what is it, like probably roots in a because I think all the Christian, there's also like Catholic and then there's Islam, and like they all, and even like Judaism has all like kind of like similar foundations, and then they sort of like branched off. But most of those have been very, like, looking at history, they have acted like very violently towards people who did not agree or kind of subvert to their beliefs. Like, they have become dominant for sort of like in like more of a takeover way, like definitely not in a peaceful way, definitely not asking people what they're interested in, but in more of a like, you better convert or else, and things. So those kind of things I will not support or have that kind of thing in like my artwork, because I am very much, and I mean, I know, people say, oh, things have like changed and stuff, but I do think it is worth noting to not ignore things that have happened in the past and not to glide over them and just pretend, oh, they're not there, they don't exist. Like, it's very much why I'm certainly in countries where these kind of things are the predominant religion, why there are still strifes with that today, whether it be like politically or with each other and things. Like, they're still causing like strife today based on beliefs. But as far as like the pagan community goes, or like the Buddhist community goes, like, I haven't heard of, monks kind of like trying to burn down villages or whatever it is, or I don't know. It's just like, so anyways, but that was interesting. I mean, I obviously didn't go into all of that with the person at the time, but I was just like, not really something that I paint and things like that. So yeah, but it's just so interesting to think about like all the inspirations and where my art comes from. And maybe that's like, I think also the inclusivity part, that I do like to showcase people from like various cultures and like various like backgrounds. And I like to, what is that? Oh, I guess also like make up stories that have just like characters like you wouldn't expect. Like, there was I'm reading right now. It's about like a frog and like sorcerer, and people get turned and they have to defend their village from foxes, and there's kind of like mysteries there. And I've been like telling the story to my kids, and they're really good at letting me know, like, look, like, this is kind of boring right now. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me like make that a bit more exciting. Or when I like tell them a story and then they're like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen next, then I know like I'm onto a good thing. And kind of like, yeah, keep fleshing that out. And that reminds me too of, I think it was Roald Dahl who said that I read something where he said he had done something similar with his kids, how like if he was like telling them a bedtime story, and if they were excited about what happened next, he knew he was like onto something good. So yeah, and then also I get like kind of input from my kids, and like, what if there was this mystery, or what about this potion and hidden here in the dungeons and other things. I'm like, wow. So they have quite active imaginations as well. And so here we are, after having talked about all the things, into the Am I an Artist? And I will say that I feel like it's just an intrinsic part of who I am, because I do believe like artistry is sort of, for me, I guess being an artist is seeing things more than they appear. And that is just, in general, just like how I live my life. Like, there's sort of like the surface appearance of how things are looking, but then there's like all the intricate details that make it up. Like, there's like a very like fine ecological balance that we can't even like see with our eyes, like how the ants interact with the bees, interact with the birds and the flowers and stuff. And I mean, some of these things we know, but then there's also a lot we don't know. And so I think it's like the same with peoples and cultures and regions that we live in, and societies and things like that, we just kind of like go about our day, but then there's all these sort of things that we get to question, and then we get to write the own story of our life in a way that best represents how we feel apart from any sort of judgments. And I think that is an artistic view, because even when I'm looking at like pictures, I'm like, what do I want to keep? What do I want to stay? What colors do I want to use? What? And I think all of that is just very what? I don't know, very creative, I guess. And I think like drawing and using like pencils and using paints happens to be the way that I express that. But it could also be, for another person, it could be embroidery, or for another person, it could be a program. I would even say that. I think that programmers can even be highly creative, because they have to sort of like, they have to problem solve and have to think about, well, what about this layout here? Or how should I grab the data here? And maybe there's not a solution that exists yet, and that they have to like creatively think about that as well. So I would say that maybe anyone who thinks about things in a creative way and comes up with ideas, that they could be an artist as well. And so when people ask me, hey, what do you do? and stuff, and I'm like, well, I'm an artist. I feel like maybe that's just me saying, hey, this is how I live my life. Like, whether I, for a career or a job, like whether I'm, like a teacher or a web designer or a plumber or a construction worker, or like whatever it is, a writer, like the way that I think about things and do things and move about life and solve all kinds of things, it is in a creative and artistic way. And so no matter what I'm doing as far as like a job goes or income, I feel like I'll always be an artist. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to my TED Talk over here. That's what Erin and I call it when I just start going off about a certain subject. We're like, welcome to Sredna's TED Talks and stuff. And actually last night I was like, oh my gosh, I want to like go over this. Like, do I even feel like an artist? Like, what is going on? And he was like, and then I was like, wait, do you want me to not talk right now though? And he was like, yeah, I think I would just want to watch a show. And I was like, totally fair. It's been a long day. And I was like, you know what? This would be I think this would make a good topic for a video. So this can be the place where I just like sort of ramble on about art stuff, because it's like an art channel and people are interested in art. So I'm sure they'd be interested in what's going on in this artist head of mine. So, yep. Well, everyone, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.